passing the inspection for registration. Because every year, I go in there and I've got beads of sweat because for whatever reason, my truck likes to throw a code right before the registration time. It never fails. One year, 2 or 3 years ago, it took from, it's normally due in October, now it's due in November, but that year it took until March to get it inspected and pass the inspection.
Oh my.
Because it broke up. Anyway, it's a long story. Troy knows some of it, but it's, yeah, that truck gives me, I'm sweating every time registration is due on that. It's almost 16 years old and it still runs great. It just decides not to run great when it's time for the registration to be due. So, anyway. So, we are in Isaiah, and I was going back over my outlines here, and I think I'm moving a little bit too fast. So I'm going to kind of slow it down a little bit. But we're just going to look at 4 chapters today, and then I'm going to, we got some other chunks that are large, and I'm going to kind of break those up a little bit. Today we're going to be looking at 36 through 39 chapters. Now, just because I'm such an awesome teacher, everybody's got everything memorized up to this point, I'm sure. And look, a lot of what we've seen so far is Isaiah not only, giving a warning, but he's giving, I'm guilty of misusing the word prophet, but he's foretelling something that's going to be coming to the Hebrews in a not so distant future. Okay, and that is the invasion of the Assyrians. And so he's been leading up to this, and we looked at it, we talked about it briefly last week about the idea that this one foretelling that he was talking about was the coming of a king. And, there's two sides of the aisle on that one. One thinks maybe that was a prophecy of the Messiah, and others think that was a prophecy or the foretelling of the Hezekiah, the king, who's also referred to as a righteous king. I tend to lean, after going through this, I personally, and that's not biting on anybody, but I personally, reading this in context, believe that it's referring to Hezekiah for what's about to happen. And again, Isaiah is not only going to talk about the heart, or has been talking about the hardships that are coming up to this point, but also giving them words of encouragement that, of course, God knows everything that's going on. He's in control. He's going to keep his word, as he always has and always will. And you need to hold the course, okay, and stay faithful to it. Many times in the past of the Hebrews, we see that they, a good chunk of them start turning toward idols and things like that are blasphemous to the one and only God. So in these next, in this, in these next 4 chapters, we kind of step out a little bit. It's kind of a, you know, a view of what's actually happening. Okay, now we're going from Isaiah delivering his messages to, okay, let's step back, let's look at current events. You know, here's the actual on the ground reporting. This is what's going on. So, with that, there's really 2 main events that's talked about in this these next few chapters, next 4 chapters, and they involve Isaiah, of course, and they involve Hezekiah. So, here in these, in 36 and 37, there is the account of the actual Assyrian invasion. Okay, so Isaiah has foretold this. Okay, so again, you know, just like everything else, you know, written in the Bible, foretelling something, especially here in Isaiah, and as we've mentioned, or I've mentioned repeatedly, that Isaiah is the most quoted book of the Old Testament by the apostles and the writers of the New Testament. So my point is that, you know, when the prophets are telling things that are going to happen, and they're speaking for God, and of course when they foretell something, it's really God foretelling something, and guess what? It's going to happen. Bottom line. But he usually puts some conditions on it too. Okay, this is what's going to happen if you keep going down this path. Okay? And this is coming straight from God, so, you know, he's true to his word. So here come the Assyrians in chapters 36 and 37, and we'll hit those. But Isaiah foretold this in chapter 10, chapter 14, chapter 30, chapter 31, in several verses. And so what happens is here I go with these words again. Sennacherib, I believe is the pronunciation of the king of Assyria. He was already mowing down, basically taking cities in Judah. Okay, and he sends Rabshakeh to send a message and persuade Hezekiah to surrender. And he does it in a way that really blasphemes God. So, and he tells him things like, when you read through this, he tells him things like, okay, we went through this place, we conquered this place, we conquered that place, and what did their gods do? Did they stop us? No. They didn't stop us. Well, of course, they're not real. They're not real. They're just handmade images and things like that. They're not going to do anything. But the king of Assyria sends this message saying, hey, you know, these places, their gods didn't help them. So your God's not going to help you. I mean, it's just going to have the same result. Where was he mistaken? Okay? So then, Hezekiah hears all this, he puts on sackcloth and ashes, and then he sends some messengers to Isaiah, saying, you know, in sackcloth and ashes, to, you know, tell Isaiah what's going on, you know, the message that he got, and that, you know, of course, he trusted enough to get some advice from Isaiah. And, you know, what do you suppose Isaiah told him? If you read this before, if you read it just a little bit ago, or if you know the story, or what would Isaiah tell Hezekiah in a situation like this? Or if any of us here are in a situation that's pretty uncomfortable, or, you know, not sure where it's going, what would the advice be in a case like this? I was thinking of 3 words. Trust the Lord. Trust the Lord. Okay? So, Hezekiah does. He looks to the Lord. And who knows what happens next? What happens to the Assyrians?
They die.
They fall.
They fall. I mean, I conjecture, I don't know. When I read through this and I think about it's referred to as the angel of death, where have we heard that before?
Oh, during Moses' time.
Passover.
Passover.
Yeah. So angel of death, you know, some versions have a destroyer. I don't know, is it the same entity? I don't know, but that's the first thing that comes to my mind. Maybe perhaps it's the same thing, but that really doesn't matter. But 185,000 or so Assyrians just get wiped out during the night. In their own camp. So then the king of Assyria retreats, goes back home, and bows before his, you know, his engraved image of, you know, whatever the I'm trying to remember what it was called. Anyway, the king of Assyria's god, or Nisroch, that's right. He bows down before him. Well, I shouldn't say him, but bows down before it, whatever the image was. And then what happens? His own sons come in and kill him. So, anyway, so that's kind of the overview of those 36 and 37. A little bit more, you know, get into a little bit more detail. This all happened in the 14th year of Hezekiah. And so Hezekiah sent messengers, and they were to meet at, let's see, one version is an aqueduct, anyway, like a canal, of the archaeology there. I had a chance before I was a Christian, so I didn't really gain the appreciation that I could have, but it was still fascinating, was visiting the ruins of Ephesus. And it was amazing to see something that was that old. You're talking thousands of years old, maybe. And seeing the elaborate plumbing and all of that was there, that, you know, they felt was there. So they had irrigation canals, they had all that stuff, you know, same things that we use today, roads, canals, water crops, elaborate ways of delivering that water. So they're going to meet the Syrian king's messenger at this aqueduct. And let me see, I'm trying to think of the other word that was used. Conduit, yeah, that's the word I was trying to think of. So New American Standard says conduit. And so they're meeting there, and then they get this message that, you know, we just kind of back up just a little bit, but in previous chapters, we talked a little bit about the idea that the Hebrews were going to try and align with Egyptians to protect them against the Assyrians, all right? And that didn't make God very happy, that, okay, they're going to put their trust in an ally that's not even, you know, not even part of the family, if you will. And so, you know, these events take years to happen. So obviously the Assyrians get word that the Hebrews are trying to align with the Egyptians to try and thwart this invasion. And the messenger for Assyria tells them, you know, you need to stop putting your faith into the Egyptians. They're not going to do anything for you. As a matter of fact, they're going to hurt you in the end. So I'll give you 2,000 horses if you swear an allegiance to us. And, you know, my notes here say, anybody a Star Trek fan? Resistance is futile. So,
Sounds like the Pharaoh was a real backstabber, though.
yeah.
He was a
well,
shady character.
That's what the Syrian messenger was telling them, that, okay, you can align with him, but he's just going to stab you. They used some clever wording there, you know, being jabbed through the hand,
Yeah.
all that.
Said Egypt's the broken reed of a staff,
Right.
which will pierce the hand of any man that leans on it.
So, now here's, in verses 9 and 10, we see how we see some of the blasphemy that's used here by the Assyrians. How then can you repulse one official of the least of my master's servants and rely on Egypt for chariots and horsemen? Have I now come up without the master's or the Lord's approval against this land and destroy it? The Lord said to me, go up against this land and destroy it. And this message back, and again, Hezekiah goes and seeks the advice from Isaiah, and Isaiah in the next chapter, tells Hezekiah that, you have assurance that, the Lord is going to deliver. And this is my words, but, no doubt part of that was Isaiah saying, didn't I tell you? Been telling you this for years. Okay? The Lord's going to deliver you. This is going to happen. The Lord's going to deliver. And the Lord keeps his word. Okay? So, Hezekiah takes this blasphemous letter, and of course he's in his sackcloth and ashes, and he lays it down. And his purpose was, I'm going to lay it out for the Lord to see what kind of things were written about him, hoping that would get him riled up. But again, this was going to happen. The Lord doesn't need a letter spread out on the floor telling him what the Assyrians said about him. But Hezekiah does this and then says a prayer. And Isaiah answers him back and tells him that, hey, trust the Lord, because in the third year you're going to be planting vineyards, you're going to have prosperous, the Lord's going to defend Jerusalem himself. Okay. So then we see that at the end of 37 that the Lord, of course, keeps his promise, as he always does, and all those Assyrians were wiped out in one night. You can use your imagination on how it was. They might have just been, I don't know. We don't know. It might have been gruesome. It might have just been, they're all dead.
It is amazing, though, that, when the Assyrian king, his emissary, when he couldn't get anywhere with Hezekiah, he sidestepped him and went directly to the, I would assume, the rest of the courts and the people there in 36. And it said he called out in the voice and the language of Judah. So basically he started spreading fear tactics.
Psyops.
What's that?
Psyops.
Yeah, he was saying, don't let Hezekiah deceive you, for he will not be able to deliver you. There in 14. Do not let Hezekiah make you trust in the Lord by saying, the Lord will surely deliver us. This city will be given into the hand of the king of Assyria. Do not listen to Hezekiah. For thus says the king of Assyria, make your peace with me, and come out to me. Then each one of you will eat of his own vine, and each one of his own fig tree, and each one of you will drink the water of his own cistern. So, he was, and, I'm sure that had to have gone through the people's mind, because, the king of Assyria was formidable. I'm sure that the Israelites had heard of the conquest and battles that had raged and that he had won and different things like that. And now this, so it would take a lot of faith to follow your king and your God, when knowing what has happened in the past, on the physical plane, I should say, because he's pretty fair. He says, if you don't trust him, if you don't do this, you're done for, in so many words.
Yeah, that's an important part, yeah.
And until I come and take you away to a land like your own land, beware. He was spreading the propaganda. Don't follow King Hezekiah.
And Hezekiah's emissaries, there was 3 of them. I'm not going to try and butcher their names again, like I always do. But how did they appear when they came back to report what Rabshakeh, I'm just going to call him Rabshakeh, had said and was saying among the people? Because he was speaking in the Hebrew language, like Brad said. And they came back with their clothes torn, and they probably made a little example of them that Syrians did, where they sent them back. So then, all that, like Brad pointed out, which I also should have pointed out, that this word is being spread throughout the land, and that's going to cause Hezekiah even more anxiety, if you will, that the people are going to lose faith, and the Syrians are saying, hey, don't listen to Hezekiah. So it's following that Hezekiah sends word to Isaiah, and Isaiah tells him to trust in the Lord. So again, the death angel, as it's referred to, or I don't know if anybody has any other words to describe the but anyway, so it goes through, and then of course Assyria retreats, the king goes back, he goes before his idol, his sons kill him, and I think there's a little bit more. Okay, so the sons that killed him, they escaped. This is the last verse in chapter 37. They escaped, and then one of his other sons took his place. So that's Assyria. All right, they still have another obstacle to cover, though. So in 38 and 39, Hezekiah becomes ill. Now, I'm not sure what it is that he's told later on to put fig on the boil, so I don't know what it is he's afflicted with, but
Isaiah tells him he's going to die.
yeah, Isaiah tells him he's going to die, and Hezekiah prays about it, and set your house in order. Let's see. Isaiah tells him, set your house in order, for you shall die and not live. That's whatever. These are one of those cases where I wonder what the actual phrase was, you shall die and not live. That's, when you die, you don't live. that's how it was translated into English, so I don't. So then, after that, Hezekiah turns and prays, and he pleads his case of, walk before you in truth with a whole heart. And then the Lord sends Isaiah again. Thus saith the Lord in verse 4, the God of your father, David, I have heard your prayer and I have seen your tears. Behold, I will add 15 years to your life. I will deliver you and this city from the hand of the king of Assyria, and I will defend this city. So, goes on to tell them of a sign on the sundial where the shadow is going to go in the direction that it's not supposed to go. And that would be a sign to Hezekiah that the Lord is going to keep his word, or is going to do that for him, or that, I should say that what Isaiah says, this Lord said, he's going to know it's true by looking at the sundial and having the shadow go in a way that it wasn't supposed to as it moved through. And I know I'm kind of giving a generic description of that, but the idea there is that, okay, this is going to be your sign that what I told Isaiah is true. Okay, Isaiah is not just, speaking for himself. Okay. So then we go into a poetic form. After Hezekiah is healed, and let's see, well, we can do that, but a couple things I know you can read through that, and in 39, this is the part that I thought was real interesting. Okay. How long it took, because they, of course, back then they didn't have the internet, or they didn't have, phones, radios, all that good stuff, media, to, get word out. But Hezekiah was dying, or he was ill, of something that he wasn't going to recover from, and he was going to die. Then the word gets out somehow, or however long it takes, and these envoys from Babylon come, and let's see. All right, the son of Baladan, king of Babylon, sent letters and a present to Hezekiah, for he heard that he'd been sick and had recovered. So again, we don't know what kind of timeline this was. Hezekiah it might state it in maybe Kings or something there. I didn't look, but I don't know. Let's just put it that way. So they present this letter from the Babylon saying, hey, I heard that you were sick. I heard that you're better now. Here's a gift. So what did Hezekiah do? And you just kind of read chapter 39. He takes those envoys, right? And what does he show them?
Everything.
Everything. All his wealth. So what, is that a good idea? idea?
Letting the fox in the hen house.
I mean, you know, we'll fast forward to modern times. Are you gonna take a stranger that might possibly be an enemy and take them through your house and say, oh, hey, here's my jewelry. Oh, by the way, I've got a stash of cash over here. Here's my food supply in case there's an earthquake, you know, in the valley here, and this, that, and the other thing. What do you think they're gonna do when they go back to where they came from? What do you think the envoys told the king of Babylon?
This dude's richer than you.
Yeah. You should see the wealth that this guy has. Oh, really? Oh, maybe I'll send him another present. You know, it's called my army. And so then Isaiah's got some bad news for him after that. So basically, Isaiah questions Hezekiah about this visit. He says, okay, tell me about this again. What did they see? You know, so again, Hezekiah, oh, I showed him everything. Oh, that was done. Okay, so because you did that, Hezekiah even goes as far as to say that there is nothing among my treasuries that I have not showed them.
I think he might have, I don't know, it seems to me kind of like he kind of lost his mind towards the end, you know.
Maybe.
Because here towards the end of 36, he said, then Hezekiah said to Isaiah, the word of the Lord that you have spoken is good, after he told him that everything's going to be taken to Babylon. He says, for he thought there will be peace and security in my days. It's like, I don't care, I don't give a hoot about the future as long as I'm okay during my reign. You know, so I'm that doesn't seem like rational thought, you know.
That got me too, when I read that.
If you're a king over a
tells
nation.
him all these bad things are going to happen, and then he says, well, the word you've spoken is good.
What? What's good about being taken over?
What? That's good? Yeah, well, I mean, that's
What? Yeah, I don't know.
it's good because I don't have to deal with it, or
yeah, I don't know.
anybody else have any thoughts on that?
I mean, and what do you know, with the Babylon envoys, I mean, you know, what do they say about pride? What goes before a fall? So I don't know. It's almost like he kind of went mentally off or something. I don't know.
Yeah, that I didn't quite.
Of course, it all works towards God's word being fulfilled, you know.
Right.
But still, it's just interesting that he would call that good.
Well, I mean, and then you look at it, and some of your sons who will issue from you, whom you will beget, will be taken away.
And to become eunuchs.
And become eunuchs.
Yeah.
And Hezekiah says, oh, okay, that's good. Yeah,
Well,
I like
that's not
that.
during my time.
I like that. Yeah, there's going to be peace during my days. But yeah, I was scratching my head over that one.
Yeah,
I have, you know.
For someone who's supposed to care about his kingdom, you know.
Yeah, maybe the illness drove him mad. I don't know. But
God gave him an extra 15 years, but I looked it up, and it said he was approximately 54 when he died. So 15 years minus that, he would have been like, what, 39, something like that. So when God granted him the extra time. But yeah, I don't know. I think he must have got into something that his mind just went or something.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Isaiah tells him about sons he's going to beget, so they're not even born yet. And then, I mean, how did that look? He gets a new baby son, and he says, I'm glad I'm not you.
Yeah. Curious things about
You're adorable, but he's gonna have a rough life, bud.
curious things about the Old Testament.
Yeah. Well, all right. Any other? Okie dokie. Well, thanks, everybody,
Thanks, Jeff.
for putting up with me.